All right, we're COMP391, Intro to Game and Simulation, and it's week 2, lesson 2, part 5, I believe. Let me see. Maybe it's part 5. Maybe it's part 6. It's part 6. Part 6. There we go. All right, so part 4, we talked about the assignment. Part 5, or sorry, part 3, we talked about assignment. Part 4, we talked about kind of a little bit, finished off a little bit of more of the theory behind game design. Part 5, last time we went into some materials, very simple materials and lighting, and we added a little bit of the physics aspect to it at the end. Okay, this is cool. So we've got our landscape the way it is right now, and we've got a couple of objects. And one thing I've asked you to do is name some of your objects in the outliner over here. Right, so this is the outline view for the scene. By the way, you can call the scene whatever you want to. You can rename your scene, add additional scenes. They're just containers for all your objects, right? Okay, cool. Well, I need to have more than one of these enemies, right? So I want to start the duplication process. And how do we duplicate things? Does anyone know? Yes. Shift D. You got it. First, what I'd like to do is kind of put it in this perspective here. And I want to right-click on my sphere here. And I'm going to press Shift D. When I Shift D, it's glowing white. Don't move it yet. If you notice, there's a white outline around my new object. I want to limit it around the Y-axis. So I'm going to press Y. Right now, when I do that, the sphere that I have pulls out, right, as an example, with the same material and texturing and everything else, lighting. The whole thing, right, except it's an actual second object. And I'm going to left-click to stop it. I've got two spheres now. Let me move one a little bit to the left, so it's in the light, and the other one a little bit to the right. They're still at the exact same level. One of them is called enemy, and the other one is called enemy 001. Let's name one of them, the first one, enemy 1, and the second one, enemy 2. Right, this is this 001. Let's name that enemy 2. They're both the exact same object, though. They're just two instances of the same object. Let me explain that again. Do you guys know about object-oriented programming? Are you in? Did you guys do Comp 123? Are you in Comp 123? Yes. Have you started to learn about classes? You learn about objects. Yeah. So I created an object of a class. Well, think about this object here I've created as an instance of a class of sphere. So I've got a sphere class, right? And I've applied different properties to my sphere class. I've got lighting. I've got, as an example, a material. Material has color, and it has different specularity, right? All this kind of stuff. These are all properties of my object. But guys, because I've created a duplicate of the object, it's actually the same object, just a different instance. So that means that if I change the color or the material of this object's material will change as well. Let's change that. Let's check that out to see if I'm right. So I'm going to choose one of these two spheres. I'm going to choose the icon right here. This is kind of object-oriented programming in a nutshell. And if you notice my diffuse, my color right here, right, is red. Now, if I choose to change my color from red for this object here, if I choose my red color from this red to this red, right, because red is a global color, it changes it to kind of more of a pinky red, right? What color would this be, Vanessa? You're the girl, right? So I only see in 16 colors. How many colors do you see? You must see some kind of other colors here. Come on. No? Pinky. It's pinky kind of, fuchsia. Kind of color, right? See, I actually said another color. It wasn't just a red, green, or blue, right? Okay, so I changed both, right? That's what I've just done, right? But to illustrate this even more, right? If I remove this color red, right now it's red. I'm going to move it back to red. Let's go move it back to the way it was. Two ways to do that. I can just move it back down, or I can press Control Z, right? If I press Control Z enough times, it goes back to the way it was, right? Red. Okay, cool. But what if I'm actually highlighting one of these spheres, but I'm going to remove the red color. So I'm just going to click minus. Now it removes it from the instance of this object here, right? If you notice, it didn't just remove the object's color, but there's no material anymore for the sphere altogether. Take a look. Right? The material, if I click on this sphere, right-click, I actually have, right-click, this material is red, and it actually has a material. But because I've I kind of clicked the minus button on this sphere, right? It doesn't have any material because this is a different instance of the same object. The objects have the same properties right now when they were first created. Okay, cool. Let us add another material, new material, right? And this time I'm going to choose diffuse. And in my diffuse, I'm going to go and make it blue. Like a deep blue, like this. Almost like a blue-black color. Right? I want to change the material name so the material says blue. Okay, cool. Here's my blue material. Yeah? I got blue, I got red, I've got green, and I've got light brown. All right. If I press play now, P, the P button, both spheres fall on the same rate because they're both objects that start at approximately the same level. Escape, right? P, again, I'm just doing simple physics right now, right? If I put one sphere above the other one like this, right? And if I press play, one sphere falls faster than the other one because one's lower to the ground, right? Escape. Okay, we're not talking physics yet, but I want you to understand that different positioning above and below this plane that we've designated as a ground. It's not really a ground. It's just a plane that has static physics, right? That's what I want you to think about it. Will it do anything? Let's see, that's a good question. So I'm going to put this down here. I'm going to move this one over here, right? Am I really above the other ball? I kind of am, right? There's some reflectivity here going on. And if I want to know, how do I know that? I'm going to go to 7. Come on, buddy. Come on, baby. 7, right? There's the top view. I want to go into Orthographic View. And I can see now from this Orthographic View, this is why Orthographic View is so important, that one sphere is directly in front of the other sphere. Right? I'm just in Orthographic View here. Sort of the top-down view, right? If I go to the right, though, you can see that one sphere is slightly to the right of the other one. If I want to make it, actually, it's pretty good, actually. Let's leave it the one. Same thing for the front. If I go to the left, so I'm going to do Shift 3 on the left side, right? And now I'm back into perspective mode, right? Here I am in perspective mode, and I can see that our objects are right on top of each other. Now this is the way I want to be. I want to be so that my arrow, from an orientation perspective, points up approximately. Here's me go. And my green arrow, my right arrow points to the right when we do our games, starting off, just to make it easier for us. Here's my enemy, or my player. I'm going to move him so that he's in the light, but just kind of back. Oops. Sorry, I just undid there. There we go. So he's kind of over here. All right, when I press P for play, and you wanted me to check this out, so I'm going to make this kind of a little bit higher, right? If I press P for play, one object falls on top of another one, and it just stays that way. Because our physics that we're using right now, our friction and other things that are in our resistance, all the other options that we have from a physics perspective are the same, right? Each object weighs one, they're each of an equal mass as well. You know, if I made them different, then I can make them bounce, I can make them do all kinds of things. Don't worry about that now. That's kind of an advanced topic we'll talk about later on. For now, what I want you to understand is that they exist in the three-dimensional world. I'm just going to move this away for a second. And I've added a couple of different materials, a green, a red, a blue, and a light brown, with a little bit of lighting that gives us this different effect. Okay, this is cool. If I press P again, boom, right? They all fall in the order that how high they are off the ground, right? If you want to know from first of all, just remember from your old math days, who remembers what is the acceleration due to gravity? 9.8. Is that really a realistic acceleration due to gravity for games? I would say no. what would you recommend the acceleration due to gravity would be for a game? Think about it. More like 30, right? Why? You want objects to fall quicker, right? If we just wait for objects to fall in space like a natural object would fall, right? It falls a little bit, it floats a little bit, right? Because in real life, it takes time for you to fall on the ground. But if you make it a little quicker, then the game flows a little faster. Now you can make it as realistic as possible, but then we're going to go back to that old discussion, realism versus playability, right? Which is kind of the two constraints here. For me to make the physics of the world change, there's another little button here in the middle, right? If you notice, there's right now we're in this the furthest right sphere. There's a middle sphere here that shows us world. Our world right now describes everything from the horizon color to if you want to apply the mist to all this kind of stuff. And if you notice down here, there's a gravity option, right? Because we're using bullet physics. We can change this to whatever we want, like 30. If I change this gravity to 30, which I've done here by going to the middle button, and now I press play, right? Objects fall 3 times faster. I can also change it so that the gravity is 0. Gravity 0 means if I press play, it just stays there, right? There is no gravity. It's 0 gravity, right? Almost like space. So you can see how the applications work out. Physics happen automatically for us. Let me go back to 30, because that's a good number, right? And go back here and press play. They fall fairly quickly now. That's really all I want to talk about when it comes to physics for now, only because I don't want to confuse you guys too much more, right? Poor Igor is already going, I'm going to pull up my hair, Tom, because you got me crazy with all these controls, right? And you know, he's right. He's not wrong. There's a lot of controls for this thing. It's like flying a plane, right? But it's okay. We're going to learn about all these things. Okay, cool. So we've done a single color. We've talked about the world and everything else. But what if I want to add multiple colors? Well, for this example, I think we've gone as far as I want to go with this example. You could certainly save it if you'd like, or if you want to start over, which is I'm going to do. And again, don't be afraid to start again. If you mess things up, guys, starting again, 2 seconds. So I'm going to go File, New. I'm going to go Reload Startup File. And if you notice, here's my cube, right? Want to zoom in, right? We did colors and everything else before, right? But let us do a couple more things. I'm going to tab in to edit. I'm going to press in here. I'm going to subdivide a couple of times, right? So let's say we have subdivided the cube a couple of times, right? All right, I want to take it from perspective mode. So I want to go to the front again. And I want to go into orthographic mode, and I want to zoom in, right? So this is our typical way. I'm going to use the Z button to go into wireframe mode, right? There's wireframe, and I want to deselect all. Now I have my wireframes. Are you with me? I want to press the B button to select, a B select mode, and I want to select all of these things here, right? And I want to press X to delete, X to delete. So now half my vertices are gone, and if you notice, I've got half a cube. Right? There we go, half a cube. All right, so I got less of the cube to work with now. All right, so now I'm going to go into solid mode by pressing Z. And I'm going to go back to perspective mode by pressing 5. Right? So you should see what I'm seeing now. There's a box, a bit of a box, if you notice here, and half the box is gone. Right? I'm going to kind of scroll out, and I'm going to go Control Tab to go to Face Select mode. Face Select mode with Control Tab. And now I want to select these 4, take care, these 4 faces right here. Right? These 4 faces. Okay, cool. Now, move this out here a little bit. What if I'm in edit mode here? I'm going to click on my material. And if you notice my material right now, right, I've got something called material. I want to make this, we'll call it red, right? So first let's choose diffuse and go into the red color spectrum, right? And if you notice my whole object turns red if I was to do that. I don't want that. I don't want my whole object to turn red, right? I want to undo. How do I get rid of this? Well, I can delete the material. If I do that, it says, hey, you can't delete materials, right, in edit mode. If I go tab out, and if I delete my only material, I can do that. Now my cube, or half the cube that I have, whatever, doesn't have any material applied to it. Okay. I want to go back into edit mode. I want to create a new material, right? I want to choose red as an example for my material. Let's make it red again. Don't worry about if it colors your whole object, okay? That's cool. And I want to name this thing red. So we're going to change the name of the material to red. Right? There we are. There's red. I'm in edit mode doing this now, right? Okay, I'm going to make another one. I'm going to make another material, right? I'm going to choose a new material here, right? So I've chosen this plus button and then new, and then I'm going to choose another color. And let's make this color green. I'm going to move it toward the green. Now it's not showing up, but that's okay. Let's rename this thing so it says green. Green. All right, that's cool, right? Now, I want you to select, in face select mode, I want you to select these 4 faces, right? And I want you to click on green. Take a look. I want you to click on green and select assign. Now what happens? I can actually change part of my object by clicking assign, the green, and then assign as much as I want. And I can make my object have different colors. If you notice, my object not only has colors on the outside, but the colors are the same on the inside. Let's deselect everything so you can see that. And the same thing goes with the colors on the top. I can do the same thing. So we make it almost like a plus pattern, if you will. So we'll kind of do the same thing. So right click, select all the ones on the top, right? And the ones, these faces here, click green, and then click assign. Same thing with the ones at the bottom, right? So click these faces here, right? And the ones on the bottom, and then move it to green and click assign. And now my box has red and green Christmas colors, right? All right, now I want to select my entire box by clicking the A button twice. So my whole box is selected, this half a box. And remember what we did last time? I went into this wrench mode, right? And I went to add modifier. And I go to mirror. And then look what I have. I have the other green side of my box already done for me. Remember how mirroring is it's the right thing to do when it comes to things that are symmetrical. When you make a symmetrical shape, mirroring is the way to go. Okay, well, let's deselect all. We're going into the shape. We're almost done. Got a few more minutes. And I want to Control Tab, and I want to go into vertex mode. Vertex mode. And I want to select these vertices. This one, these 4, this one, and this one. Cool. All right, so I got these 4 vertices selected. I can't select these ones though. How come? How come I can't select these ones over here? It's in the mirror, right? I can't select these ones because these are in mirror mode. These ones are the only active vertices right now, the ones that are on this side. Okay, cool. I've got my vertices selected, right? And now what I want to choose is S for scale. And I want to pull into the object like this a little bit so that it's halfway in. Take a look now what you get. Okay, so you get the object that has, and it's exactly the same all around, right, as an example. If I'd like to make this more rounded on one side, right, I can certainly go into this front mode, right? I want to go into right mode, so to the right side. So I've cut the left side out, right? And I want to go into Orthographic View, so I want to limit what my view looks like. So this is my view now. This is what you should see if you're on the right side, if you've cut the left side out like I did, right? And you've kind of minimized some of these points. Well, no, look what I can do is I have control now, especially in orthographic. That's why orthographic is so important, because I can control more of my object. I can go in here and press S, and I can keeping these vertices still selected, and I can kind of go in as far as I want, even if to the point where they're convex or concave. I mean, there's concave, right? If I want to come back out, right, a little bit more, so that it's a little bit more rounded, I can do that, right? I can also select other vertices. Like for example, I'm going to go back, I'm going to select A for deselect. And now I'm going to select these vertices, the ones that are on the top of the green. So Shift A, Shift Select, Shift Select, Shift Select, Shift Select, just these vertices here, right? Again, this is like making artwork, guys, right? So we're going to go S for scale, and we're going to pull these in as well, right? A little bit more at a time, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Oh, not, that's too much. I want to still have the roundedness, but a little bit less. There we go. And say stop. Left click for stop. If I rotate this to bring back out, guess what happens? The other side is the same, right? Because we're in mirror mode. So you can actually, this is a great way of, again, modeling our object altogether. All right, here I'm going to go into A to select all, right? So I hit A a couple times, right? It doesn't matter which view you're in right now. And now what I would like to do is I want to apply another modifier. So I'm going to go to modifier. I'm going to click add modifier. This is new, right? And I'm going to go in and add in subdivision surface. This is a very common modifier. Let's try and add this in and see what happens. Subdivision surface. Okay, cool. Take a look. Now what's happened to my cube? It's become more rounded, right? So here's what's happened. I have my vertices here, but underneath the surface, I've subdivided it even more to give this rounded-like effect. On the right side, under this new modifier we've added in, right? This subdivision surface modifier, right? If you notice, there is a couple things, right? First of all, which part of this is the mirror modifier up here, right? And then down here, this is the subdivision modifier down here. There's two modifiers. I haven't applied any modifier right now. The modifiers have been left unapplied, right? See down here where it says subdivisions? I can increase the view by 1. If I do that, it becomes much more subdivided. Take a look, right? And I can do it again. Let's do it to 3. So 3 and render 3. Now I only have this many divisions. If I add more divisions, this is just the subdivision modifier. If I go to the left and subdivide it here physically, right? Again, now it gives me a different shape. Take a look. The more divisions I add, the smoother it becomes. By the way, this is not low poly stuff. So when it comes to using this object in your game, it will take more cycles for you to use this kind of object. It looks neater though, right? Okay, cool. Well, this is good, right? Let's deselect all, and let's go to one of the corners here. And I want to select this corner, and I want to select this corner. Looks like a corner, right? These corners here, and this corner over here. And this time I want to go down to the bottom where we did proportional editing like we did last time. So this object right here. We can get to proportional editing with what hotkey? Who remembers? O for proportional editing. Press O. When we turn that on, and if I click, if I start editing these points, the points around them will stretch and move according to what I'm trying to do here, right? So let's just do more of this. I'm going to go into right view. I'm going to go into orthographic view, right? And now I'm going to pull these in even more. So I'm going to go S to scale and take a look at, I can increase, by the way, my sphere of influence. I want to change my sphere of influence so it's very big in this particular case, like this big, right? So it kind of encompasses the whole side of the cube. And now I want to change my proportional editing. So as I move in, it affects everything like this. Almost like it creates this hexagonal pattern. Do you see it? Okay, cool. And now I've got some problems. Take a look at the problem that I've created for myself. What did I do? I've split this thing in half because what I've done is I've pulled the edges out so that it's created a split, because this is where I created my seam, right, between the two mirrored halves, right? This is great to do when the mirror has already been applied. Let's undo this and do it again. So we're going to go Command Z or Control Z for people using the PC. I'm going to go back over here like this. And before we do this thing we just did, I'm going to apply both modifiers. I'm going to go Apply. Right? Oh, I got to do them in, I got to do them in Object mode. So I'm going to go to Object mode and apply both modifiers in order. So now when I go back into Editing mode, tab in, look at the challenge I get. I get this many points. If I go to try and select this now, it's more difficult, right? But this is how many actual objects I have. This is a very complex object now that I have going on. Yeah. If I want to select this whole face, right? Again, I'm in a proportional editing mode. I know. Interesting, eh? If I go to C select mode, here's my C select mode. I want to go, first of all, I'm going to escape that. I want to go from the right side. I'm in orthographic mode. I want to click C for C select mode, right? And I want to increase my sphere of influence, by scrolling up until it affects pretty much most of the side of this thing, like maybe this big, just underneath the sides, right? I want to center my cursor so that it hits that point. So there's a little yellow point there. I want to kind of hit that one as much as I can and click. Now all that has been selected, and I'm going to press escape. So you see, only that side has been selected. I've used the C. It's approximate. I could be more accurate here, but I'm not going to be accurate. I'm just going to play, right? Now, I want you to put it to the side like this, and I want you to grab this and pull it out a little bit. And what does it do? It's actually moving everything out. It's actually transforming it a little bit at a time, so it moves it out, right? It's not an extrude. It's actually deforming it a little bit on this side, only on this side. Okay, now that I've got all these points, I want you to press S, and I want you to pull in more and more and more to kind of create a point. There we go. Now we've created a different object. Almost like some kind of container object, right? Like a box. If I want to delete all this, I can, and there's different ways I can delete it. I can delete vertices by pressing X and going vertices, and then I've got a hole in my box, right? There we go. So why am I showing you all this? A couple of reasons, just to recap, because we're at the end. One, you can apply different materials to the object by creating the materials, selecting the region that you want to apply to, faces you want to apply to, and then clicking Assign. All right? You can create, we've actually looked at the Subdivision Surface modifier, which is different than divisions, than dividing it, because what it does is it rounds off an object. It rounds off an object. Okay. One more example and then we're done. So new. Here's my sphere, my cube. I'm going to move in. You should be able to do this more quickly now as we keep doing this over and over again. This time down here on the bottom, I'm going to select my this tool right here, which is the manipulator arm that scales. This one here. Makes it so these are little cubes, right? This one here. Okay, what I want you to do now, I'm going to pull this thing down. Oops, no, it's not that one. This one. I want to take the Z, the blue arm, and I want you to move it so that it's compact like this. Okay, cool. That's the object. So it almost looks like a pad. Could be almost like a baseball, base, if you will, right? Okay, cool. I want you to go into Tab into Edit mode. I want you to change the manipulator arm to just back to being a transformer again, like this. So it moves it. So I'm just changing the manipulator arm back to this. I'm going to go into subdivide, and I want you to subdivide a couple times. So 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I know what I want, so I want to make it maybe a couple more. There we go. 4. So 4 subdivisions. Okay, cool. Now, I want you to look at this from the top. So I want you to press 7. And I want you to look at it in orthographic mode. Okay, and I want you to zoom in so you see just one aspect of it. So it's a grid pattern, right? All right. Okay, cool. I want you to deselect all. Now, I want you to go into Control Tab into Face mode. Now you have all these little pieces here, right? Okay, here's what I want you to do now. Now this is where mirroring would be really cool if I did half of this thing, right? Because then I wouldn't have to do this thing for the whole piece, right? And by the way, I can mirror both halves, both the top and the bottom. I didn't want to do that, but we could. For now, let's not mirror, and let's choose these aspects here, these faces here, and these faces here in a pattern, right? All we're doing is we're choosing these 4 faces, these 4 faces, and those 4 faces. Okay, cool. Now this is top orientation, right? Top orientation. I want to go into front orientation and press 1 on the keypad. Okay, so there's front orientation. If you notice, there's a bunch of subdivisions that happen here as well. All right, I want you to press E for extrude, and then I want you to press enter. I want you to press E for extrude again, and this time I want you to pull up, right, along the Z axis, right? So it kind of climbs up a little bit. All right, let's say to this level here. And I'm about, I would see several Blender units up. Okay, now I want you to rotate the object. Take a look at what we've got here. So simultaneously, I've rotated the object so it looks like this. Okay, cool. Now this is just an object with some handles, if you will, right? I want you to select everything, A. And now what I want you to do is I want you to go into the modifier arm, this modifier. I want you to add a subdivision surface modifier. Okay, tell me what it's doing. Look what it's done. Here's my subdivision surface modifier. Okay, cool. If I increase the view to this, to 2, it becomes smoother on these areas here, but not over here. Right, now I want you to deselect all. I want you to go back into object mode by pressing tab. Take a look at the object we've created. So they're smooth objects. Subdivision surface modifier is different than a divider. We divided it first. The more divisions, the smoother the arc when we do subdivision surface modifier. This is great for making things like chair legs, right? Or appendages for your character, arms, legs, whatever, when you extrude them out, right? Think about what you're doing here. And they become smooth looking, they become realistic looking, right? Then you can malform them afterwards. You can actually take each one of these and modify it, render it, rotate it, do all kinds of other stuff as we go forward. For now, subdivision surface modifier we're going to be using more often. Take a look at the roundedness. That's one thing we've done of the actual surface of this object. So this rounded here. These are all rounded corners, right? Because the subdivision surface modifier adds roundedness to our object. Again, if I go into tab, when I go in to the object and zoom in, I have a matrix. Take a look at the matrix. Even though this object appears to be rounded, the subdivision surface modifier still keeps my, as long as I don't apply it, is the key, right? It still uses low, polygons, not so many polygons, right? And allows me to manipulate each of the points of the matrix to change the way my object looks. Once I apply this, and I can only do this in object mode, if I apply this modifier and then go into tab mode, now it becomes crazy. Right? So sometimes we want to leave a modifier unapplied, right, for us to have a certain look and feel of an object. Because once I got to go into this, now there's many more subdivisions. The other thing to note is this. I have subdivided this whole surface, right? We have never talked about up to date, which is what we're going to talk about next week. Multiple objects, right? How do we add, subtract? Like, Vanessa had multiple objects embedded in her object. The object is just a name for the materials that are inside of it, right? We can have multiple objects inside of an object, quote unquote. So we can have different components of the object, and they all can be tied in together under one name, right? Right now, my object is just called cube. It doesn't look like a cube, does it? It looks like something weird with handles or some kind of, maybe, I don't know, the bottom of a chair or something like that, a stool. If I turn it around like this, so now it's upside down, it can kind of be almost like a stool, right? Now, it's not a great stool for different reasons, and I'll show you that, because here's what the stool would look like. But a stool has kind of like this indented area up here, right? That kind of makes it easier for a person to sit down into. It's usually not square like this. Square stool's uncomfortable for the bum, right? You gotta kind of round it off a little bit, right? Be honest, right? So if you notice, most stools have a bit of an indentation, even if the chairs that you sit on look like this, right? So if I wanted to make this into a chair, what do? This part here of the object, I would extrude up, right? And then I can. We haven't done connections either. but you can connect this thing so you can make a chair very simply from a cube. Okay, that's enough for today. I think we've covered a lot of stuff. Again, recap, materials, lighting. We did multiple materials in this last video, so you can apply different materials to different parts of the object, right? And then next week we're going to do more of this kind of stuff as we go slowly down the journey that we're taking into understanding Blender in 3D space.